Welcome to this episode. Have you subscribed yet? The Mystery of the Mountain Ghost's Marriage in Ghost Opera in Yinshan, Records of the Nuo Mask and the Sunken Coffin. Chapter 9, The Suona Sound of the Mountain Ghost's Marriage. On the autumn equinox, Yinshan village was enveloped in thick fog. Before the twilight had completely faded, intermittent Suona sounds came from the direction of the mountain god temple, like rusty blades being dragged across a stone slab. Su Wangyan tightly gripped the half-Nuo opera mask in his hand, his fingertips rubbing the human tooth at the eye socket of the mask. The tooth glinted a bluish gray in the moonlight, as if it had absorbed the grievances of the sacrifices over the past century. He hid behind the thick trunk of the mountain god pagoda tree and saw Akui tied to the tree. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, making her face as pale as soaked white paper. The silver bracelet on her chest was a relic of his mother, Su Shunye, the one he had picked up in the back alley of the paper-making shop that morning. But now it was on Akui's wrist, and the pagoda wood pattern at the mouth of the bracelet was facing a newly emerged red dot on the back of her neck. Dong! The bell of the mountain god temple rang, startling the crows xi-xiing on the pagoda tree branches. Su Wangyan counted the bell sounds. When the 19th sound fell, the fog suddenly thickened to an impenetrable degree. Vaguely, he saw 12 paper figures floating out from the temple gate. Each paper figure was wearing an eyeless Nuo opera mask and holding a soul-summoning lamp over a foot high. The wick of the lamp was red, making the eye sockets of the paper figures seem to be bleeding. Brother Wangyan, look, ... Akui's voice came from the tree, trembling like water. Su Wangyan looked up and saw that her left ring finger was nailed to the tree trunk with a pagoda wood nail. The blood beads oozing from the wound flowed along the bark pattern, actually outlining the shape of a miniature stone coffin on the rough wooden surface. Even more eerily, her eyes were painted red, and 3 black vertical lines were drawn from the corners of her eyes to her jaw, the makeup of the ghost bride in the mountain ghost's marriage sacrifice. Suddenly, the Suona sound rose to a shrill screech. Su Wangyan saw village head Lin Wanshan walking out from the temple gate. On the wooden plate in his hand were 3 pagoda wood nails. The one in the middle glistened moistly, as if it had just been pulled out of a living person. The faded Nuo opera mask embroidered on the cuff of his blue shirt fluttered with every step he took, and fine red sand drifted out, landing at Akui's feet and gathering into a small character den. At the autumn equinox sacrifice, the mountain ghost is pleased. Pagoda, wood as nails, red silk as clothes. Lin Wanshan's voice was like water, soaked paper money, sticking clammy to the fog. Akui, you look even more beautiful in the red wedding dress than your mother did back then. Su Wangyan suddenly remembered that Akui's mother was the human pillar who was laid in the coffin in 1993. He touched the pagoda wood tablet in his pocket. The birth dates of all the villagers engraved on the back were getting hot. Beside Akui's name, a blood-colored engraving had somehow appeared, very much like the outline of a stone coffin at the bottom of the river. The paper figures stopped under the pagoda tree. The soul-summoning lamps formed an arc, illuminating the human face patterns on the tree trunk. Su Wangyan had heard from Chunchiazi that every time this 1,000-year-old pagoda tree devoured a sacrifice, a new human face would appear on its bark. At this moment, those distorted faces were slowly turning, their eye sockets aimed at Akui, and their mouths grinning in eerie arcs, as if laughing silently. The second nail, locking the soul, there was a soft click from Lin Wanshan's wooden plate, and the second pagoda wood nail was already in his palm. Su Wangyan noticed that his little finger was severed at the root and black blood was seeping from the broken end, which was exactly the mark of the broken finger oath passed down from generation to generation among the Luomen tomb keepers. So, Chunchiazi was right. The seemingly kind-hearted village head was the real mastermind behind the threefold sacrifice in Yinshan. Kui suddenly struggled violently. The silver bracelet made a clear sound as it hit the pagoda wood. Brother Wangyan, they said you're the human pillar who should be laid in the coffin. Before she could finish, Lin Wanshan's palm had covered her mouth. The red sand leaking from between his fingers seeped into her lips and teeth, actually forming a miniature mask on her tongue. Su Wangyan heard a low laugh coming from the depths of the pagoda tree, like countless bubbles rising from the bottom of the river. It was the sound he had dreamed of on the night his mother was laid in the coffin. The paper figures started to circle the tree. The red light of the soul-summoning lamps pulled long shadows in the fog, and each shadow resembled a living person wearing a mask. Su Wanyan counted the number of paper figures, exactly 19, corresponding to the 19 stone coffins at the bottom of the river. When the paper figures passed by his hiding place, the front row paper figure suddenly turned its head. The black hole in its eye socket was facing his direction, and the paper-pasted corner of its mouth pulled out a stiff arc, the same smile as the paper figure at Chen Chizi's funeral. The third nail, cutting off the afterlife. Lin Wanshan's voice suddenly changed tone, as if two people were speaking at the same time. Su Wanyan saw the pagoda tree root-shaped scar on the back of his neck wriggling. The bark-like pattern crawled towards his ear, actually coinciding exactly with the human face pattern of the mountain god pagoda tree. The wooden nail in his hand was aimed at Kui's heart. The silver bracelet suddenly emitted a strong light in the moonlight, revealing small characters engraved on the inner side of the tree trunk. When the twin fiends returned, the thousand hands opened their eyes. Just as the nail was about to pierce, the bronze bell of the mountain god temple suddenly rang on its own. The half-nuo opera mask in Su Wanyan's arms trembled violently, and the human tooth at the eye socket buzzed. He saw fragments of memories from 1937. His mother, Su Xunyang, was tied to the same pagoda tree with the same silver bracelet around her neck. Lin Wanshan's figure loomed large and small in the fog, and the wooden nail in his hand was engraved with the three characters Su Wangyan. Bang! The bronze bell split in half. The startled crows knocked down pagoda tree leaves, revealing the paper figures hidden among the branches. Those paper figures were wearing faded red wedding dresses with tablets of the previous human pillars pinned to their chests. The names on each tablet were dripping blood, which finally gathered on the ground to form three characters. Substitute comes. Suddenly, Kui's silver bracelet broke. The moment it fell at Su Wanyan's feet, the reflections of 19 stone coffins emerged in the fog. He recognized the birthmark on one of the coffin leads as the ligneous pattern on his left ring finger, the mark of the sacrifice that should have belonged to Lin Yunyang in 1937. Brother Wang Yan, ... Kui's voice was like water-soaked cotton wool. She looked down at her chest. Somehow, the pagoda wood nail had already penetrated her heart, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. They said your blood can make the thousand-hand lord open his eyes. Su Wanyan suddenly remembered Chen Shizi's words before his death. The coffin-sinking sacrifice in 1937 should have been the simultaneous sacrifice of the twin fiends. He looked at Lin Wanshan, who was wiping the blood on the wooden nail with his cuff. But he found that the blood beads rolled into pagoda tree sawdust on the ground, gradually spelling out the words 2023 Wanyan, exactly his birth date this year. The paper figures stopped circling, and the soul-summoning lamps went out simultaneously. In the darkness, the human face pattern on the mountain god pagoda tree suddenly glowed red. 19 bloodstains seeped out from the bark and gathered at Kui's feet to form a miniature stone coffin. Su Wanyan saw her body gradually become transparent in the red light, and finally turn into a pagoda tree leaf, floating towards the direction of the mountain god temple, where 19 long burning lamps were going out one by one. When Lin Wanshan turned around, his blue shirt was soaked with cold sweat. The scar on the back of his neck glistened with a ligneous texture in the moonlight. When your mother replaced Yunyang and was laid in the coffin, she should have known that the blood of the twin fiends would eventually flow back to Yinshen. He pointed to the mountain god temple. The temple door had somehow opened, and inside was placed the 20th stone coffin. The inner side of the coffin lid was engraved with Su Wanyan's face. In the next 10 years, it will be your turn to put on the red wedding dress. The fog began to dissipate. Su Wanyan picked up the silver bracelet. The inscriptions on the inner side were clearly visible in the moonlight. The Dragon Boat Festival in 1937, the twin fiends were born. All that was left of Kui was the red sand mark on the ground, exactly the same shape as the birthmark in his palm, the mark of the left hand stump of the thousand-hand corpse god. The mountain wind swept across the pagoda, tree branches, carrying faint cries. Su Wanyan saw the paper figures carrying an empty bridal sedan chair coming out from the temple gate. The Nuo opera mask embroidered on the sedan chair curtain was oozing blood, and the destination of the sedan chair was exactly the direction of the Yinshui River. 19 dull sounds came from the bottom of the river, as if the stone coffins were making room for the new sacrifice. He reached into his pocket for the half-Nuo opera mask. The human tooth at the eye socket suddenly became loose, revealing the engraving inside. Twin fiends can substitute one death, one life. It was the handwriting of his mother, Su Xunye, but it was even more aged than the notes he remembered from the time of the coffin. Sinking. It turned out that as early as before he was born, this curse of substitution had already been inscribed in the annual rings of the mountain god pagoda tree, making the first stroke. The Suona sound rang out again, but this time it was much clearer than before. At the end of the paper figure procession, Su Wanyan saw a paper figure wearing an eye patch, smiling at him. Half of a pagoda wood tablet was exposed from its cuff with the words Chen Chiezi Tomb Keeper written on it. When he chased after it, the paper figure had already disappeared, leaving only the broken bell of the mountain god temple swaying in the wind, striking a rhythm that did not belong to the human world. The autumn equinox moon rose above the mountain, stretching the shadow of the mountain god pagoda tree into a long shape, like a limestone coffin. Su Wanyan stared at the bloodstain left by a kue on the tree trunk and suddenly found that the blood was wriggling, gradually turning into the character Wang. It was the pattern formed by the stone coffins at the bottom of the river, and also the first call of the thousand-hand corpse god to him. He knew that this sacrifice in the name of love was never an end. When the paper figure bridal sedan chair passed by the mountain god pagoda tree for the third time, perhaps the one nailed to the tree next would be himself. And the Nuo opera in Yinshan would eventually sing the first elegy for the fate of the twin fiends under the bloody moonlight.